The alien ship Star Whisper moved slowly through space toward the distant planet. Commander Vextal stood on the bridge, looking at the strange readings on his screen. His 6 eyes focused on the data that made no sense. The planet below should be dead. Their computers said nothing could live there. "Commander," called Science Officer Kellinor from her station. "The energy readings are getting stronger. Something is definitely down there." Vextal's tentacles moved nervously across his control panel. The Zelithian people had explored thousands of worlds, but they had never seen readings like this. The planet called Kepler 442c was supposed to be a wasteland. Their best scientists had studied it 50 years ago and marked it as impossible for life. "Take us closer," Vextal ordered. "But keep our shields ready." The planet grew larger on their view screen. It looked terrible. The atmosphere was filled with toxic clouds. The surface showed areas of extreme heat and cold. Radiation levels would kill most known life forms in minutes. Yet their instruments clearly showed organized energy patterns that meant civilization. Dr. Kethrim, the ship's chief scientist, moved his 4 arms quickly over his equipment. "Commander, I am reading structures, buildings, and movement." Lots of movement. Movement? Vextal could not believe it. What kind of creatures could survive down there? "Unknown, sir. But they appear to be thriving." The ship descended through the toxic atmosphere, their protective systems working hard to keep them safe. Through the thick clouds, they began to see the impossible. Green areas spread across the surface. Rivers of clean water flowed between. Organized settlements. Roads connected different areas. Gardens grew in neat rows. "This cannot be real," whispered Kellinor. They flew over a large settlement. Hundreds of buildings stood in organized patterns. Beings moved between them, working in open areas that should have killed them instantly. The aliens watched in shock. As these creatures worked outside without any protection, breathing the poisonous air as if it was normal. "Commander," Dr. Kethrin said, his voice shaking, "I am detecting the creatures. They are they are human." Silence filled the bridge. Every alien knew about humans. They were the new species that had recently started exploring space. Most civilized races thought humans were weak and primitive. They used simple technology and had no special abilities. How could they possibly survive here? "Land the ship," Vextal ordered, "but keep everyone in protective suits. I want to see this for myself." The Star Whisper landed in a flat area near the settlement. As soon as they touched down, the aliens saw something that made their blood run cold. Humans were walking toward their ship, not running in fear, not hiding, but walking calmly as if alien visitors were normal. A tall human male reached the ship. First, he wore simple clothes and carried no weapons. His skin was darker than most humans the aliens had seen, and he looked completely healthy despite the toxic environment. He smiled and raised his hand in greeting. "Welcome to New Haven." The human called out in clear galactic standard language. "I'm Jake Morrison, leader of this colony. We've been expecting visitors for years." Commander Vextal stepped out of his ship, his protective suit heavy and uncomfortable. The human Jake stood there breathing the poisonous air like it was nothing. This was impossible. "How are you alive?" Vextal asked through his suit speaker. Jake laughed, a sound that seemed strange in such a deadly place. "Same way everything else lives, I guess. We adapt. Come on, let me show you around. But fair warning, things might look a little different than what you're used to." More humans gathered around them, men, women, and children of all ages. They all looked healthy and happy. Some had slightly different features than standard humans, larger lungs, thicker skin, different eye colors. But they were clearly human. A young woman with bright red hair stepped forward. "I'm Lisa Grant, the colony doctor." Don't worry about your protective suits. You'll need them here. But we'd love to show you how we've made this place home. Doctor. Catherine stared at the readings on his portable scanner. The radiation here should kill you in minutes. The air contains 12 different toxins. The temperature changes should destroy your bodies. Lisa smiled. Should is a funny word. We've found that should doesn't mean much when you really need to survive. Jake gestured toward the settlement. We've been here for 73 years. 3 generations of humans born and raised on this world. It wasn't easy at first, but we figured it out. Figured it out? Vextal repeated. His people would have considered this planet a death sentence. Sure, Jake said. Every problem has a solution. You just have to be willing to try new things. Come on, let me show you what we've built. As they walked toward the settlement, Vextal noticed more impossible things. Plants grew in soil that should have been poison. Animals that looked like modified earth creatures moved freely in the toxic air. Human children played games in areas where his instruments showed deadly radiation levels. How long have your people lived here? Dr. Kethrim asked. My grandfather was part of the original colony ship, Jake explained. Engine failure stranded us here. Most species would have died, waiting for rescue. We decided to make it work instead. They reached the edge of the settlement. Buildings made from local materials stood strong against the harsh winds. Solar panels and wind generators provided power. Gardens full of food plants grew and organized. Rose, it looked like any successful colony, except it existed in conditions that should have been impossible for human life. This is incredible, Kellener whispered. Jake heard her. Incredible? This is just Tuesday for us. Wait until you see what we're really proud of. Commander Vextal felt a chill that had nothing to do with his protective suit. If humans could survive here, could thrive here, what other impossible things might they be capable of? His people had always thought of humans as weak and simple. But looking at New Haven, he began to wonder if they had been very, very wrong. Tour was about to begin, and Vextal had the feeling that everything they thought they knew about humans was about to change forever. Dr. Kethrim could not stop staring at his medical scanner. The device was designed to study all known forms of life in the galaxy. Right now, it was telling him things that should not be possible. The human children, he said to Commander Vextal. Their lung capacity is 40% larger than standard humans. Their blood carries oxygen differently. Their skin has adapted to filter radiation. Jake Morrison walked beside them, breathing the toxic air easily. Doc Grant can explain it better than me. She's the one who figured out most of the medical stuff. They entered a building that looked like a medical center. Dr. Lisa Grant was waiting for them with charts and data displays. Her red hair was tied back, and she wore simple work clothes. She looked completely normal, except for her eyes, which were a strange golden color. Welcome to our medical center, Lisa said. I understand you're curious about our adaptations. Dr. Kethrim pointed his scanner at her. Your cellular structure is impossible. You should not be able to process the toxins in this atmosphere. Lisa laughed. Tell that to my cells. They seem to handle it just fine. She walked to a large chart on the wall. When the first colonists arrived here, they had a choice. Die slowly from the environment, or try to adapt quickly. Adaptation takes thousands of years, Dr. Kethrim protested. Evolution cannot happen in 3 generations. Natural evolution, sure, Lisa agreed. But we didn't wait for natural evolution. We helped it along. She showed them pictures of the original colonists. They looked like normal humans from Earth. Then she showed pictures of the 2nd generation. Small changes were visible. Different eye colors, slightly larger chests, thicker skin. The 1st generation had it tough, Lisa explained. But they did something crazy. Instead of trying to make the planet more like Earth, they decided to make themselves more like the planet. Commander Vextall felt his tentacles curl with worry. You deliberately exposed yourselves to toxins? Controlled exposure, Lisa corrected. Small amounts at first. Just enough to build immunity without dying. The people who could handle it better had children. Those children could handle even more. She walked to another chart. This one showed blood samples. By the second generation, our blood chemistry had changed. We process toxins differently now. What would poison you just makes us stronger. A young human entered the medical center. He looked about 16 years old, with dark skin and bright blue eyes. Doc Grant, you wanted to see me? Perfect timing, Pete, Lisa said. Pete Sullivan here is third generation. Born and raised on this planet. Pete, would you mind showing our visitors something? Pete smiled and walked to a container marked with warning symbols. Inside was a liquid that glowed with dangerous radiation. He opened the container and dipped his bare hand into the liquid. Dr. Kethrim's scanner immediately started making alarm sounds. Stop. That substance will kill you. Pete pulled his hand out, completely unharmed. Nah, this stuff just makes my hand tingle a little. We use it to power some of our equipment. Impossible, whispered Science Officer Kellinor. Lisa checked Pete's hand with her own scanner. Normal readings for Pete. What would give you severe radiation poisoning just makes his cells work a little faster. Jake Morrison led them outside to where a man was working on some kind of machine. The man was about 30 years old, with brown hair and green eyes. His arms were covered in scars, but he looked healthy and strong. This is Ben Carter, our chief engineer, Jake said. Ben, show them the fuel converter. Ben wiped his hands on a cloth and smiled at the aliens. Sure thing, Jake. He walked to a large machine that was making humming sounds. This beauty takes the toxic gases from our atmosphere and turns them into power for the colony. How is that possible? Dr. Kethrim asked. Well, when you can't breathe the air anyway, you might as well use it for something useful, Ben explained. Took us about 10 years to figure out the chemistry, but now we get more power than we know what to do with. Ben opened a panel on the machine. Inside, glowing substances flowed through clear tubes. See, most species try to fight hostile environments. We learn to work with them instead. He pointed to different parts of the machine. This part filters the worst toxins. This part breaks down the radiation into usable energy. And this part turns the leftover gases into water and breathable air for our emergency shelters. Commander Vextall looked at his own people, who needed heavy protective suits just to stand on this planet. You have turned the planet's dangers into resources. Everything dangerous is also useful if you think about it right, Ben said. The radiation gives us power. The toxic plants make medicine. The extreme temperatures help us with manufacturing. We just had to learn to see opportunity instead of problems. Dr. Kethrim was studying his scanner readings again. Your people have achieved biological changes that should take millions of years. How? Lisa rejoined them, carrying a datapad. We kept detailed records from the beginning. Each generation, we identified the people who adapted best. We encouraged them to have children together. We also used controlled exposure therapy on volunteers. You experimented on yourselves? Kellner asked in horror. We volunteered, Lisa corrected. Every adult who wanted to try new adaptations signed up. Some experiments didn't work, but the ones that did work, we shared with everyone. Jake showed them a group of children playing in a field. The field was next to a radiation vent that would have killed most beings instantly. The children were laughing and running games, completely unaffected. Those kids represent 70 years of human determination, Jake said. Their great-grandparents would have died in minutes here, They were born here and think this is normal. A little girl with black hair and brown eyes ran up to them. She looked about 8 years old. "Are you really aliens?" she asked excitedly. "Yes, child," Commander Vextal said gently. "We are from another world. Cool. Do you want to see my pet?" Before anyone could answer, she whistled loudly. A creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird came running over. It was clearly adapted to the planet's harsh conditions. "This is Sparky," the girl said. "I found him when he was a baby. Mom says his kind used to be regular Earth animals, but they changed to live here, just like us." Dr. Kethrim scanned the creature. Genetic modifications consistent with rapid adaptive evolution. This animal's ancestors could not have survived here. "Nothing's ancestors could survive here," Ben Carter said. "That's what makes it interesting. We all had to become something new." As they walked back toward the medical center, Dr. Kethrim realized something that made his blood run cold. The humans had not just adapted to survive on an impossible world. They had turned adaptation itself into a science. They were deliberately evolving themselves into something new. "Dr. Grant," he said carefully, "what other adaptations are you working on?" Lisa smiled, and her golden eyes seemed to glow slightly. "Well, we've got some ideas about improving resistance to vacuum exposure. And we're working on modifications that would let us survive in even higher radiation environments. There are some really interesting planets out there that other species think are completely impossible." Commander Vextal felt a chill that went beyond fear. The humans were not just surviving the impossible. They were preparing to conquer it, one planet at a time. The next morning, Commander Vextal was awakened by strange sounds outside his ship. Through the viewports, he could see human children running and playing in the toxic air. What shocked him most was not that they could survive outside, but that they seemed to be enjoying dangerous activities. "Commander," called Science Officer Kellinor from the ship's entrance. "You need to see this." Vextal joined her outside, both still wearing their protective suits. A group of human children, led by a woman with short brown hair, were doing something that made the aliens' blood freeze. They were playing games with radioactive materials. The woman noticed the aliens watching and walked over. "Good morning. I'm Amy Rodriguez, the colony's historian and teacher. The kids wanted to meet you properly today." "Teacher?" Dr. Kethrim joined them, his scanner already beeping with alarm. "You are teaching children to handle dangerous substances?" Amy laughed. "On this planet, everything is dangerous. If we don't teach them how to handle it, they won't survive. Watch this." She called to a boy who looked about 10 years old. "Tommy, show our visitors the radiation sorting game." Tommy ran over with a bright smile. He was carrying containers that made Dr. Kethrim's scanner scream warnings. "Hi, aliens. Want to see how we separate the different types of radiation? It's really fun." "Fun?" Kellinar whispered in horror. Tommy opened one of the containers. Inside were glowing crystals of different colors. The green ones are good for power. The blue ones help plants grow faster. The red ones are too dangerous even for us, so we store them in the special caves. He picked up the crystals with his bare hands, sorting them into different containers. "You have to be really careful with the red ones. They can hurt you if you're not protected right." Dr. Kethrim watched his scanner readings. The child was handling materials that would have killed most beings in the galaxy. "How do you know which ones are safe?" "Practice," Tommy said simply. "We start learning when we're really little. First, we just watch. Then we practice with the safest ones. By the time we're my age, we can handle most of the medium dangerous stuff." Amy gestured to other children playing nearby. On Earth, children learn to cross streets safely by understanding traffic. Here, they learn to handle their environment by understanding radiation, toxins, and extreme conditions. A girl with blonde hair and freckles ran up to them. She looked about 12 years old. "Miss Rodriguez, can we show them the cave exploration exercise?" "Sure, Sandy," Amy said. "But remember the safety rules." Sandy nodded seriously. "Always check air quality first. Always carry emergency supplies. Never go alone. Always tell someone where you're going." She led the group towards some nearby hills where cave openings were visible. These caves have different dangers in each one. Some have bad air. Some have radiation. Some have unstable rocks. We learn to identify and handle each type. Commander Vextal could not believe what he was seeing. "You send children into dangerous caves?" "Supervised training exercises," Amy corrected. "By the time they're adults, they'll need to work in environments like these. Better to learn safely as children than to make deadly mistakes as adults." They watched as children checked equipment, tested air samples, and organized safety gear. It was clearly a well-practiced routine. The children worked with calm efficiency that would have impressed adult professionals from most civilized species. Jake Morrison joined them at the cave entrance. "I know it looks crazy to outsiders, but remember, this entire planet is dangerous. We can't raise our children in safe bubbles because safe bubbles don't exist here." A man with black hair and a beard walked up to them. He wore clothes marked with security symbols. "Morning, Jake. I'm Dan Parker, head of colony security." "Heard. We have visitors interested in how we do things." "Security?" Dr. Kethrim asked. "What kind of security do you need on a planet like this?" Dan grinned. "Well, the planet itself is our biggest security system, but let me show you our backup plans." He led them to an area near the colony's edge. What they saw there made the aliens step backward in shock. The humans had built defense systems that used the planet's natural dangers as weapons. "See those vents over there?" Don pointed to openings in the ground that released toxic gases. "We can control those remotely. Anyone trying to attack the colony would have to get through clouds of poison gas." He showed them other defenses. Radiation fields that could be directed at specific areas. Temperature zones that could be made deadly hot or cold. Unstable ground that could be triggered to collapse. "Most species try to protect themselves from their environment," Dan explained. "We learn to make the environment protect us." Dr. Kethrim was studying his readings again. "You have weaponized an entire planet." "We prefer to think of it as creative problem-solving," Dan said. "Why build expensive energy weapons when the planet will do the work for free?" Amy Rodriguez had been listening to their conversation. "That's the key difference between us and most species. You see problems to be solved. We see resources to be used." She gestured toward the colony. "Every challenge this planet gave us, we turned into an advantage. The toxic air became fuel. The radiation became power. The dangerous wildlife became partners. The unstable geology became defensive systems." Jake nodded. "It's not just about surviving anymore. We've built a culture around the idea that there's no such thing as impossible, only undiscovered solutions." A teenage girl with red hair approached them. She was carrying a device that looked like a communication system. "Mr. Morrison, we're getting signals from the orbital survey. Looks like more visitors might be coming." "Thanks, Kelly," Jake said. Then he turned to the aliens. "Kelly here designed our early warning system. She's 16. Kelly smiled proudly. "I wanted to make sure we'd know if anyone was coming to visit. The system can detect ships from pretty far away and figure out if they're friendly or not." Commander Vextal stared at the device. It looked like it was built from scraps and local materials, but his scanner showed it was incredibly sophisticated. "You built this yourself?" "Sure," Kelly said. "Mr. Carter taught me the basics of engineering, and Miss Rodriguez helped me understand communication protocols. The rest I figured out by experimenting." Experimenting with what? Kelleher asked. Well, the planet has natural electromagnetic fields that can be used for long-range detection. And the radiation crystals make really good signal amplifiers if you tune them right. It took a lot of tries to get it working, but that's how you learn. Dr. Kethrim realized something that made him feel sick. The humans were not just adapting to survive. They were teaching their children to see danger as opportunity, to treat the impossible as a puzzle to be solved. They were raising an entire generation that thought like this. How many children live in this colony? He asked quietly. Amy smiled. About 600. And they're all growing up with the idea that any problem can be solved if you're creative. Enough and willing to take calculated risks. Jake added, they're also growing up knowing that their parents and grandparents turned an impossible situation into a thriving home. They don't think anything is really impossible. As the aliens watched children playing deadly games with casual skill, learning to survive in conditions that would kill most adults of other species, they began to understand something terrifying. This was not just a colony. It was a training ground for a generation of humans who thought the impossible was normal. Commander Vextal looked at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. If these humans could raise their children to treat deadly conditions as normal life, what would those children be able to accomplish as adults? What impossible places would they choose to call home next? On their third day at New Haven, Commander Vextal made a request that would change everything he thought he knew about humans. We would like to see your historical records. How did your people really end up here? Jake Morrison exchanged glances with Amy Rodriguez, the colony historian. There was something in their expressions that made Dr. Kethrim's tentacles curl with worry. You want the official story or the real story? Amy asked. There is a difference. Science Officer Kelleher asked. Jake sighed. Come on, let's show them. The archives. They deserve to know the truth. They walked to a building that looked older than the others. Inside, the walls were covered with documents, photographs, and data storage devices. A woman with gray hair and brown eyes was organizing files at a large desk. This is Kate Foster, our archivist, Amy said. Kate, our visitors want to know the real story of how we got here. Kate looked at the aliens for a long moment. Then she pulled out a thick folder. The official record says our colony ship had engine failure and we were stranded here. That's what we tell most people who ask. She opened the folder and showed them documents with official seals. The truth is more complicated. Dr. Kethrim scanned the documents. These are volunteer applications for colonists. That's right, Kate said. Every person on that original ship volunteered specifically to come to the most dangerous planet they could find. Commander Vextal felt his protective suit suddenly feel much heavier. You came here on purpose? Kate pulled out more documents. Star charts, planetary surveys, risk assessments. The original colonists spent 5 years looking for the most impossible world in this sector. They wanted somewhere that other species had declared completely uninhabitable. But why? Kelleher whispered. Amy took over the explanation. Because they believed that humanity's greatest strength was adaptation under pressure. They thought that only by facing impossible challenges could humans reach their full potential. She showed them photographs of the original colonists. They looked like normal humans, but there was something in their eyes, a determined look that was almost frightening. The mission was called Project Pioneer, Kate continued. The idea was to prove that humans could survive anywhere, given enough determination and creativity. Jake pointed to one of the photographs. That's my grandfather, Bill Morrison. He was one of the mission planners. According to his journals, he was tired of humans being seen as weak and primitive by other galactic species. Dr. Kethrim studied the documents more carefully. This planet was rated as impossible for life by 7 different species surveys. 8, Kate corrected. We did our own survey too, just to be sure. Everyone agreed nothing could survive here long term. So you decided to prove them wrong, Commander Vextall said slowly. Not just prove them wrong, Amy said. We wanted to show that humans don't just survive impossible conditions. We thrive in them. Kate pulled out another set of files. But here's the part that might really interest you. New Haven wasn't the only Project Pioneer colony. The aliens stared at her. There are others. Dozens, Jake said quietly. All across this sector of the galaxy. All on planets that other species declared uninhabitable. Kate spread out a star map. Red dots marked dozens of worlds scattered across hundreds of light years. Every red dot is a human colony established on a planet that should be impossible for life. Dr. Kethrin's scanner was going crazy as he studied the map. These worlds, ice planets, lava worlds, gas giants, radiation fields. No species could survive on all of these different types of hostile environments. One species could, Amy said. Humans, because we don't try to make the environment suit us. We make ourselves suit the environments. A new voice joined the conversation. And we're getting pretty good at it. They turned to see a man with sandy hair and blue eyes carrying a datapad. Sorry I'm late. I'm Dr. Rick Coleman, colony geneticist. I heard you wanted to know about our origins. Dr. Rick set his datapad on the table, and holographic displays showed genetic charts and population data. What Kate and Amy are showing you is just the beginning. Want to see the really interesting part? There is more? Commander Vextall asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. Much more, Dr. Rick said. New Haven has been in contact with the other pioneer colonies for the past 20 years. We share research, genetic modifications, and survival techniques. He manipulated the holographic display. The colonies on ice worlds developed enhanced cold resistance. The colonies on high radiation planets developed improved cellular repair. The colonies on high gravity worlds developed stronger bones and muscles. You are sharing these adaptations? Dr. Kethrim asked. Of course, Dr. Rick said. A human from the ice world colony can now survive here for short periods. A human from here can work in the radiation fields of the Nexus 7 colony. We're creating a species that can survive anywhere. Kate pulled out communication logs. The colonies also share technical innovations. New Haven's radiation power systems. Frost Point's ice mining techniques. Lava Base's heat-resistant materials. Each impossible world teaches us something new. Jake pointed to recent entries in the communication logs. Last month, we got a message from a new colony being established on a world with gravity 3 times. Earth normal and an atmosphere of pure methane. Impossible, Kellner breathed. That's what everyone said about this place, Amy reminded her. But the Pioneer 5 colony is already 6 months old and reporting successful adaptation progress. Dr. Rick brought up more charts. The really exciting part is what we're learning about human potential. Each generation of colonists is more adaptable than the last. The children born on these worlds can handle conditions that would have killed their grandparents. Commander Vextall studied the star map again. The red dots seemed to be spreading, forming a network across space. How many colonies are planned? As many as we can manage, Jake said. Every time someone finds a world that's supposed to be impossible for life, we send volunteers to prove them wrong. Kate showed them the most recent documents. 3 new colony ships launched last year. Target destinations include a world with an acid rain atmosphere, a planet orbiting a pulsar, and a moon with surface temperatures that shift from freezing to boiling every few hours. You are deliberately seeking out the most dangerous places in the galaxy, Dr. Kethrin said. It was not a question. We're seeking out the places where no one else wants to go, Dr. Rick corrected. While other species fight over the nice, safe worlds, we're claiming all the real estate they think is worthless. Amy pulled out one final document. It was a communication from Earth, stamped with official government seals. This came last week. Earth has officially approved Project Pioneer expansion. They're building 50 new colony ships designed specifically for impossible worlds. 50? Commander Vextall whispered. The galaxy is a big place, Jake said. Lots of impossible worlds out there. And we're finding that impossible just means nobody else was creative enough to figure it out yet. Dr. Rick grinned. Give us another 50 years, and there won't be anywhere in the galaxy that humans can't live. Not because we'll terraform the planets, but because we'll have adapted ourselves to handle any conditions we find. Commander Vextall looked at his crew. The aliens had come here thinking they would study an interesting survival story. Instead, they had discovered something that changed everything. Humanity was not just expanding into space. They were systematically conquering every environment that other species feared or avoided. The humans were not trying to find homes among the stars. They were turning the stars themselves into homes, one impossible world at a time, and they were getting better at it with each generation. Commander Vextall stood in the communications center of New Haven, watching as a young human worked with technology that should not exist. Steve Walsh, the colony's communications officer, was barely 25 years old, but he was coordinating with human settlements across the galaxy using equipment built from local materials. Morning, Commander, Steve said cheerfully. Want to listen in on the daily check-ins? We're about to connect with 47 other colonies. 47? Dr. Kethram asked. 3 days ago, they had thought New Haven was unique. That's just the ones in our communication network, Steve explained. There are more colonies that are too far away or too busy establishing themselves to check in regularly. The communication system came alive with voices. Humans speaking from worlds that sounded like nightmares. A colony on a planet where the ground was made of crystals that cut through most known materials. A settlement on a world where the atmosphere was so thick that normal creatures would be crushed flat. A group living on a moon where the radiation was so intense that it glowed in the dark. Status report from Hellfire Station, came one voice. Month 6 of operations. We've successfully adapted to surface temperatures of 800 degrees. Crop yields are exceeding expectations. Frostbite colony checking in, said another. Voice. The children born here can survive in temperatures that would freeze most water solid. We're ready to help establish settlements on even colder worlds. Crystal Falls Colony reporting. We've figured out how to use the razor-sharp crystal formations as building materials. Also, the crystals seem to amplify psychic abilities in 3rd generation. Colonists. Commander Vextall listened in growing horror as report after report came in. Each colony had turned impossible survival conditions into advantages. Each one was developing new human capabilities that should not exist. Steve noticed. The aliens' expressions. Pretty cool, right? Want to see the expansion charts? Before anyone could answer, Steve brought up a holographic display that filled the room. It showed the galaxy with thousands of points of light. Green dots marked established colonies. Yellow dots showed colonies under construction. Red dots indicated target worlds for future expansion. The green dots are colonies that have been successful for at least 2 years, Steve explained. Yellow dots are new settlements, usually less than a year old. Red dots are worlds we've identified as good candidates for future expansion. Dr. Kethram counted the dots with growing panic. There are thousands of them. Yep, Steve said proudly. And the expansion rate is accelerating. Every successful colony makes the next one easier to establish because we learn new techniques and develop new adaptations. Grace Murphy, the colony administrator, joined them in the communications center. She was a middle-aged woman with sharp, eyes and an efficient manner. I heard our visitors were interested in our expansion plans. Plans? Kellner asked weakly. Grace pulled up another display. This one showed timelines and resource allocations. Project Pioneer is now officially supported by the Human Colonial Authority. We have unlimited funding and volunteers. She pointed to different sections of the timeline. Phase 1 was proving that humans could survive on impossible worlds. That's complete. Phase 2 is establishing permanent settlements on every type of hostile environment. We're about halfway through that. What is Phase 3? Commander Vextall asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Phase 3 is integration, Grace said. We take everything we've learned about adaptation and survival, and we start establishing colonies and environments that are not just hostile, but actively supernatural or alien. Steve brought up a new set of charts. We've identified several worlds with what appear to be non-standard physics. Gravity that changes direction randomly. Time that moves at different speeds in different locations. Matter that exists in impossible states. You want to colonize worlds that violate the laws of physics? Dr. Kethrim whispered. We want to learn how to live with different laws of physics, Grace corrected. Every impossible thing we've encountered, so far, turned out to be possible once we understood it better. A new voice came over the communication system. This is Captain Lisa Park from Colony Ship Aurora. We are approaching the target world 4. Colony Site 847. Initial scans confirm that the planet phases in and out of normal spacetime, preparing to establish humanity's first settlement in partially dimensional space. Steve grinned at the aliens' horrified expressions. Lisa's one of our best colony captains. If anyone can figure out how to live in partial dimensions, it's her. Grace pulled up population projections. Conservative estimates suggest that within 100 years, humans will have established permanent settlements on every world in this galactic sector that other species consider uninhabitable. But that is impossible, Kellinor protested. There are not enough humans in existence to populate so many colonies. There will be, Steve said. Humans on hostile worlds tend to have larger families. Survival pressure encourages rapid population growth. Plus, the adaptations we're developing mean that humans are living longer and staying healthy in conditions that would kill most species quickly. Grace showed them breeding projections. The current human population across all colonies is approximately 50 million. Based on current growth rates, we'll reach 500 million within 50 years. After that, growth becomes exponential. Dr. Kethrim was staring at his scanner readings. The genetic diversity in these populations. You are not just growing in numbers. You are evolving into multiple subspecies. Subspecies adapted to specific environments, Grace agreed. Ice worlders, lava worlders, radiation worlders, gravity worlders. Each type of colony produces humans specialized for those conditions. But they can still interbreed, Steve added. So we're not splitting into separate species. We're becoming one species that can adapt to anything. Commander Vextall realized the full implications of what he was seeing. You are creating a species that can colonize any environment in the galaxy. Any environment we've discovered so far. Grace corrected. We're hoping to find even more challenging places to live. A priority communication signal came through the system. Steve answered it immediately. New Haven Communications. This is Dr. Martinez from the Galactic Survey Department. Came the voice. We've just discovered something incredible. A star system where the planets orbit through multiple dimensions. The environments shift between realities. We need volunteers for the most challenging colony mission ever attempted. Steve looked at Grace, who nodded. Dr. Martinez, this is his? Administrator Murphy. New Haven volunteers for the mission. When do we start? Commander Vextall felt his legs give out. He had to lean against the wall for support. The humans were not just conquering impossible worlds. They were actively seeking out increasingly impossible challenges. How many humans volunteer for these missions? He asked weakly. All of them, Grace said simply. We've never had a shortage of volunteers. If anything, we have waiting lists for the most dangerous assignments. Steve brought up the volunteer database. Last week's call for colonists to establish a settlement inside a black hole's event horizon got 12,000 applications in the first hour. Inside a black hole? Dr. Kethriam whispered. Theoretical physics suggests it might be possible with the right adaptations, Grace explained. We won't know until we try. Commander Vextal looked around the room at the humans working calmly, with technology that turned the impossible into the routine. He thought about his own people, who required massive life support systems just to visit a mildly hostile world. What happens, he said slowly, when you run out of impossible places to colonize? Grace and Steve exchanged glances. Well, Grace sighed. There's always other galaxies. Steve nodded. Plus, the physics research teams think they've figured out how to access parallel dimensions. Imagine infinite versions of reality, each with its own unique survival challenges. As Commander Vextal listened to the humans casually discussing the colonization of alternate realities, he realized that his people needed to send a warning to the Galactic Council. Immediately, humanity was not just another species exploring space. They were a force of nature that turned impossibility into habitat. They did not conquer worlds by force. They conquered them by becoming the only species capable of living there. And they were getting better at it every day. The galaxy would never be the same.